So you want to build a complete web application from the ground up using .NET? You're in the right place. We're not just going to throw lines of code at you. Nope. What we're doing here is laying out a clear, step-by-step roadmap to becoming a full-stack .NET developer. Let's dive in.
But really, what does it take? It's not about learning just one thing. It's about understanding how all the different pieces of the puzzle fit together. You know, from the server that's doing all the heavy lifting to the button that a user actually clicks on their screen. This roadmap, this is your guide to mastering every single piece.
Every great building starts with a rock-solid foundation. For us, that foundation is getting a real handle on the core of the .NET ecosystem. So let's lay that first stone. Okay, right at the beginning, you've got two major players. Over on one side, you have the classic .NET framework. It's been the powerhouse for Windows apps for years. But on the other side, you've got .NET Core. And let me tell you, this is the future. It's open source, it's way faster, and this is the big one, it's cross-platform.
All right, so you're probably thinking, okay, cross-platform, I hear that a lot. But why is it really such a big deal? How does that actually change things for me as a developer?
Well, it's because it completely breaks down the walls. Your code is no longer trapped on a single operating system. You can write an application once, and then you can deploy it on a Windows server or in a Linux container or even on your buddy's MacBook. That kind of flexibility, it's absolutely non-negotiable in today's tech world. So what's actually under the hood of .NET? Let's break it down into three parts. First, you've got the base class library, or BCL. Just think of this as your massive toolkit, full of pre-built code for things like managing files or connecting to the internet. Then there's the Common Language Runtime, or CLR. This is the powerful engine, the heart of the whole operation, that executes your code safely and efficiently. And finally, you have the CTS and CLS, which act like a universal translator. It's the magic that lets you use C#, F#, or Visual Basic and have them all play nicely together inside .NET.
So how does your C# code actually go from what you type to what the computer understands? Well, first, it gets compiled into something called intermediate language, or IL. Think of it as a generic, universal set of instructions. Then, when you actually run your app, the just-in-time compiler, the JIT, kicks in. It acts like this super smart translator on the fly, converting that IL into native machine code that is optimized for the exact computer it's running on. And that's the secret sauce that makes .NET apps both portable and incredibly fast.
All right, we get the platform. Now, it's time to pick up our main tool for the job. And in the .NET world, that tool is, without a doubt, C#.
You know, the Swiss Army knife analogy is just perfect. C# is so incredibly versatile. I mean, you can use it to build your web backends, desktop applications, mobile apps, even video games. It's powerful, it's modern, and it's really the language at the heart of this entire journey.
But hey, before you can build a skyscraper, you gotta know how to lay bricks, right? That means you have to master the fundamentals. We're talking about things like variables for storing your data, loops for repeating tasks, and conditional logic to help your program make decisions. These aren't just suggestions, they are the absolute non-negotiables. So once you have those basics down, you graduate to Object-Oriented Programming, or OOP. This is really a way of thinking about how to organize your code. Instead of one long, messy script, you create these neat, self-contained objects that are way easier to manage, to reuse, and to debug. It's the difference between building a rickety shack and engineering a skyscraper.
Pretty much every application out there needs to store and retrieve information, and that brings us to the backbone of our stack, the database. We're going to be focusing on a real powerhouse in the .NET world, SQL Server.
You know, mastering your data is so much more than just, well, storing it. You need to know how to design a database schema that's actually efficient and makes sense. You'll learn how to write these powerful SQL queries to pull out exactly the data you need, and use more advanced tools like stored procedures to make sure everything is fast and secure. Okay, so we've got this powerful engine and a super robust way to store our data. But that's only half the story, isn't it? A powerful engine needs a beautiful chassis for people to interact with. And that brings us to the part of the application that people actually see and touch and click on, the front end. This is where we shift our brains a little bit, away from pure logic and data, and start crafting the user experience. Your front end is really built on three pillars. HTML gives you the raw structure. It's the skeleton of your page. CSS then comes in and adds all the styling. That's the skin, the colors, the fonts. And then you've got Bootstrap. Oh man, think of Bootstrap as a professional design kit that's a total game changer. It helps you build interfaces that look amazing on any screen, from a tiny phone to a giant desktop, without having to reinvent the wheel every single time. Okay,
We've got a beautiful user interface. Now we need to connect it to the brains of the operation. Welcome to the backend. This is where we're going to use ASP.NET Core to handle all the business logic, manage the data, and respond to everything the user does. To build a really solid backend, we use a design pattern called MVC. It stands for Model, View, and Controller. The model, it only cares about the data. The view only cares about displaying the data. And the controller? It's like the traffic cop, directing requests between the other two. Think of it like a restaurant. You've got the kitchen, which is the model, the dining room, which is the view, and the waiter, who is the controller. Separating things this way makes your app so much easier to test, maintain, and grow over time.
We are in the home stretch now. We have our front end, we have our back end, and we have our database. Now it's time for the final stage of our journey, the awesome tools that tie everything together seamlessly.
First up is Link. Imagine you have a list of, say, 1,000 products, and you only want the ones that are red and cost more than $10. Before Link, you'd be writing these complicated loops. With Link, you can write a single readable line of code that almost looks like plain English to get your data. It is an incredibly powerful and just intuitive part of C#.
Next up, we have Entity Framework Core, which is what's known as an ORM. Basically, it's a translator. It lets you talk to your database using the C# objects you already know and love, and it automatically translates all of that into complex SQL behind the scenes. This gets rid of so much repetitive code and just dramatically speeds up your development time.
And finally, we have to talk about how our application communicates with the rest of the world, and that's done through APIs. Building secure and scalable RESTful APIs is an absolutely essential skill. It's how your web app can send data to a mobile app or how it can integrate with some other company's service. It is the universal language of the modern connected web.
And that's it. You have it. A clear path, a complete roadmap from the very fundamentals all the way to the advanced skills you need to be a full-stack .NET developer. So, the only question left is, what are you going to build first?